Okay, everybody, so this is my review of Dexter New Blood Episode 3, Smoke Signals. This was written by David McMillan and directed by Sanford Bookstaver. So, this episode was interesting to me where I really praised the first two episodes. This one's a little more where I would have envisioned before the season, where I'd get worried about it feeling a little stale, a little repetitive from the old Dexter. And when I was complimenting the first two on feeling how fresh they were, this one took a step back in that department for me. And I was also complimenting the first two episodes that they were going away from doing the side stories in Dexter in the past that could be, a lot of eye rolling going on while you watch it. A little sappy, a little drawn out, a little corny, and you get a little bit of that here, which was a little frustrating because we haven't really seen that yet in this season. And really, where that highlights is where I always say I'm worried about, if you're familiar with my reviews, is that when you bring in a teenage character, you got to be careful, because with that becomes some, storylines that get frustrating to watch. It's just common knowledge that people aren't crazy about storylines this, like having the bullies at the high school, these goofy teens that are catfishing this poor kid. So it kind of leaned a lot into that, or maybe if they put a little less into it, I would have been more satisfied. But this episode really was cut in half between Harrison's story and Dexter's story. And where there's some silly moments here, we could even start in Harrison's story where they first called Dexter to the school to talk to the principal. And the principal's like, "Where were you, Dexter, when Harrison was at foster school?" And the principal in the vision becomes Deborah in the same outfit as the principal, which came off just silly to me. At that point, just have Deborah appear behind the principal to do that moment, not dress her up in the same outfit. I thought that was goofy. But we see actually a lot of similarities in this episode in Harrison's story to Dexter, that Harrison sees someone getting hurt, wants to protect them. I always compare the story of Dexter to superhero stories. In particular, I've compared it in the past to like Daredevil or the Punisher, and the Punisher is what we kind of get alluded to here, because this character of Ethan that he defends has these drawings that are really messed up, which was interesting because Harrison smiled at these, so you're like, oh wait, maybe Harrison does have a lot like his father, and Ethan bringing up the Punisher. So we see these moments where Harrison goes with that theme of justice, but in a violent way, by holding Zach by his neck in the hallway, defending the innocent, just like Dexter wants to, and that in their violent actions are doing it for a just cause. So Harrison does have that similarity with Dexter, but it's going to be interesting how different it is, but that worked, and I get that for the purpose of developing Harrison's character more as we get to know him and how he handles situations, very similar to Dexter. It doesn't mean, though, that it's that entertaining or satisfying watching it. And, we got a lot of Harrison here with Audrey again in this car, and then they want to take a proper ritual for this white buck. This is where you can get into where it reminds me of the Dexter of the old, where it gets a little sappy. It's all to set up Dexter really seeing that fire from the white buck to get the idea to burn the body of Matt's. So that storyline was a little drawn out to me. There is some interesting stuff, though, when Audrey's car breaks down. This billionaire, Mr. Olson, is very weird to her, pushing her to come with him. It's going to add to the theories of Mr. Olson also being in that betting pool of who this mysterious killer is of this girl, where I had said it's probably Clancy Brown. I'm still sticking by that. The actor Clancy Brown, aka Kurt Caldwell, but it might also be Mr. Olson. They both have blue eyes, and if they're only showing little bits of Mr. Olson at this point, the billionaire, there's something up there. So yeah, he's definitely someone to consider on that list of who this killer could be. And speaking of that killer, we see that he didn't kill the girl yet, where I thought maybe they would open with the dead body here. But we actually see he has his MO showing to us now, that he lets her loose, like she's going to go free, and then hunts her and shoots her down, like something from Game of Thrones when in Battle of the Bastards are running away. It felt kind of like that. It was cool. It was a cool shot, too, the drone shot above her when she's running away, and the music worked. And we get more info that he takes his victims and he draws blood from them into a bucket. So it's nice that they're giving us breadcrumbs about our mysterious killer, which always works, and not giving away the full story here, which I like. What I also enjoyed positive of this episode is everything going on with the cop Logan here. Right from the beginning of the episode, he's already very into getting Harrison on the wrestling team, but I also feel there's a sense of he was already kind of eyeing Dexter here, and that he wants to be close to Harrison because that will also get him closer to Dexter and get into what is up with this guy Dexter, because he's on his radar, and we clearly see that when he interviews Dexter, and that was my favorite scene in the episode. Very tense. And that's the suspense where Dexter's at its best, when he's showing the footage of Dexter to Dexter on the heat vision here, so it's not clear, but he's really got an eye on Dexter because Dexter does not look good here, the way he's talking about it and constantly saying, like, can I go? So not only is Dexter rusty about how he's handling his murder scenes, but he's rusty about how he lies too. We learn, though, that there was this camera that's placed in the woods near the crime scene, and they do that for the animal tracking. I thought that led to a very suspenseful scene in the beginning when they're first showing the footage and Dexter's in there with the cops. But I would have liked when Dexter was first getting them off his scent and where the body actually is of Matt's, that he took Matt's jacket, hunting jacket, and used that DNA to get the dogs that way. But you see Dexter stepping around the crime scene where we know now that there's cameras. So I do wish in that moment, though, in that exact scene when he's dragging the jacket, that we got to see him, acknowledge a camera again and make sure, how is he doing this without them seeing him doing this, So that kind of didn't add up to me enough. I think they had to clarify that. Even though they did see him look at the camera when they were at the crime scene later on, they should have shown it when he was actually covering himself and how he got away with that, where he could do it stealthy without getting caught. Also, nice small detail, as Angela mentions to Kurt, she does plan on having a search team go to the caves to look for Matt. And that's a big point, and it gets a nice payoff because that was Dexter's original place to put the bodies, is in the caves, because that's where Deborah suggested in his vision. And he doesn't end up because he sees this bear. He runs away out of the cave. I think it's a bear. In the screener copy, it's like an animated computer bear. So I wonder if they stick with it a bear. So let me know in the comments. I'm curious about that. But anyway, he runs away. So then it doesn't end up going in the caves, the body. That was his plan. So that actually worked out in his favor, because if he did do that, he probably would have got caught. So we also see this is becoming a popular type of character in shows like Dexter, where we meet Jamie Chung's character of Molly Park. She's a great actress, Jamie Chung, and she's playing this true crime podcaster. So like I said, yeah, you'll see this in shows now, because it is something that really comes with the territory now. When you have a big case in real life, you're going to get someone wanting to cover it, a journalist, a podcaster. So it makes sense that shows are doing this now and adding that character just like you would a reporter or, an investigator. But she's going to be interesting because she's going to be someone that has all this big following and will probably be like a Logan type character that's on to Dexter at some point. What also adds to the theories, by the way, there's little hints that it might be, Kurt Caldwell is the killer here of this girl, is that when they asked for his DNA, he hesitated to give his DNA, and that could be, no killer would want the cops just to have a recent swab of their DNA. It's just not something you do. I thought that was interesting. We also get some information confirmed here that Iris, who they keep talking about with Angela's past, clearly someone close to her in her life that went missing. Yeah, I said it could be the sister or maybe her past daughter, and it's confirmed it is her former sister. So that's important for Angela's character. But, whoever did take her sister could be the same killer that we're seeing. So learning about her story might lead to learning about who the killer is in this current story. What's big about character moments for Dexter here is that he is starting to listen to Deborah again, in the sense of that he's like, okay, I'm going back to abstinence here when he burns the body. But he's still reflective, though, saying things like, what if it's the not killing that got me in trouble? So he does always question, is it worth it even, this abstinence? In the same episode, which I like because it goes back and forth in his head. But he is here more leaning towards the Deborah side of things, getting back to focusing on having a good relationship with Harrison and not killing. And there's good moments here when they have the family, he calls it a family dinner, basically. He's like, wow, I didn't think I'd have a family out here, where he was going to be secluded in the woods, but he's with Audrey, Harrison, and Angela at the table. And, that's when he gets interrupted thinking about moving the body, but he's actually got to move this white buck when he really wants to move the body that night, which I thought worked so well, how they even edited that whole scene at the dinner table. But it gets that payoff where, Dex sees how close the reservation group is during their ritual, and he wants to get that close with Harrison. He's made that clear. He apologized to Harrison about everything that went on at school with the principal, and Harrison finally calls him dad, and he loves it. So that's something that's kind of keeping him, like I said, which I like, that they have Harrison kind of take that Rita role in some sense of keeping him grounded, keeping him from going into that monster Dexter that he's always tempted, the dark passenger. So the big final moment here is he sees Kurt Caldwell just super drunk, and he's like, that doesn't look like someone who's grieving. And they're standing under Matt's ashes, which is just crazy because he just burnt the body, and Kurt has no idea. But the twist is that Kurt makes up to him that Matt's alive and that he's FaceTime him and talk to him. So he's like, why would he lie? So that's obviously a big curve here as well. So please give your theories on why would he lie? Why is Kurt saying this to Dexter at this given moment? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. But yeah, I think, there's some good moments. I mean, like I said, I can watch Deborah and Dexter together all day. I love when she's suggesting ways to get rid of the body and she's grinding it, and he's like, that seems a little too Fargo. I thought that was great. Their on-screen chemistry always off the charts, so that continues here. But this episode to me as a whole, you felt where shows get frustrating and when they start stretching things for the first time to me, because then you split the story into Harrison's school story, Dexter's story, and like I said about a lot of seasons of Dexter, frustrated me is like, yeah, the Dexter stuff's really interesting, and this was a time where we got a B plot that's okay. The Harrison stuff, the White Buck stuff, it's okay. It's not memorable. I don't think this episode is going to be one we talk about as we go on. It's just kind of keeping the story going along. Where episode 1 was really good at introducing us to where Dexter's at. Episode 2 really set well the story of the season, but this one I thought, I would have appreciated a little more interesting things or reveals happening here and moving the plot a little quicker and not so much high school stuff. But maybe that's my preference and bias about, stories with like angsty teens. But overall, I'm giving this one a 7.8. That's just how I feel about watching it. It's brought down quality a bit, and I made the concern in the beginning of this review that this was the one that felt a little too similar to Dexter of old, and that goes to having, the side plot that's not as interesting and a little sappy, but also it's going towards, okay, this still is like, I don't want to get into his zone. It's like, this is just Dexter we've seen before where he's just lying to people and hiding a killing, like, I want it to be more fresh. It just seems like it's a continuation at this episode. This is the one that felt the most to me like, okay, this just seems like the Dexter we know, but you don't want it to be too similar because then you might start questioning in your head, like, is this show even necessary? So I think we just want to keep fresh stuff happening. I think that will come, and I still have high hopes for this season. I think they're still setting up some really interesting stuff, in particular, too, as we learn more and more about what Harrison's really like. So let me know what you thought of it down below. If you agree with my rating, if you thought it was really good, I'd love to hear all your thoughts, your theories, please, as well. Please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, so you don't miss any of my reviews. I got interview clips in there as well. You can check out my interviews on my channel. If you really love what I do here, I really appreciate if you could just donate and become a member. It helps me in so many ways you have no idea. I could do this full time, review more shows and movies for you guys, and you'll get special perks as well. And I'll see you next week.